Right after this panel, we're going to have a quick break, a very short break. But to guide us through this conversation, I'd like to welcome the Chief Executive Officer of Open Access Data Centers, OADC, leading the development of a Pan-African open access digital infrastructure network powering the continent's connectivity and cloud ecosystem. With over 30 years of international experience across Europe, the US, Asia, and Africa, his distinguished career includes senior roles across finance, energy, management consulting, and the UK government. Please join me as I welcome our first panelist, Dr. Ayotunde Koka, the CEO of Open Access Data Centers. Thank you very much. If you may please join us on stage. Thank you very much, sir. Our next panelist is the Senior Director of Card Business at Borica, where he leads one of the company's core business directorates, driving strategy, innovation, and growth in the card payment ecosystem. Since joining Borica in 2002, he has risen through a range of technical and leadership roles, contributing to the company's evolution as a leading provider of payment infrastructure and solutions in Bulgaria. Please join me as I welcome to join us as our second panelist, the Senior Director, Card Business Borica, Radoslav Dimitrov. Thank you very much for joining us. And next on the panel is the Managing Director and CEO of Alpha Morgan Bank, bringing over 3 decades of leadership in commercial and investment banking. He's a visionary strategist that has built and led institutions across Africa's financial landscape, from GT Bank Sierra Leone and GT Homes to founding Alpha Morgan Capital, that has now evolved into a respected banking group. He's a fellow of both the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria and the Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers. He's also an associate of the Chartered Institute for Securities and Investments UK, as well as an alumnus of Harvard Business School. Please join me as I welcome Ade Buraimo, who is the MD CEO Alpha Morgan. Thank you very much, sir. And joining us next is a finance and digital executive with over a decade of C-suite experience. As Executive Director and Group COO of FCMB Group, he oversees operations across banking, consumer finance, investment banking, wealth management, and fintech, serving over 13 million customers. He's a chartered accountant with 25 years experience in African financial services and has led teams that raised over $1 billion in local and international capital markets. Please join me as I recognize COO of FCMB, Bolaho Joshua, who, yes, thank you very much. And finally, joining us on this panel session, he was here earlier and delivered a very detailed session, and I'm glad that he gets to be a part of it. So please welcome with me the Executive Chairman of CIT VERICASH, Ashraf Zaki. Thank you very much, Ashraf. Now you can expand further on the conversation you started earlier. And to moderate this panel of very exquisite gentlemen, I would like to welcome the founder and lead coach of Smart Stewards. She's a seasoned financial literacy coach and strategist whose work has empowered thousands across Africa to build wealth with purpose. She is passionate about simplifying complex concepts and driving meaningful financial transformation. Please join me as I welcome our insightful moderator, Shola Adeshakin, who's the lead coach and founder of Smart Stewards. A round of applause as she comes to the stage. I'll now hand over to our moderator as she continues with the conversation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, distinguished guests. So excited to be here. When I looked at the panel set up again, I'm like, where's gender equality here? The only lady amongst the very distinguished gentlemen. On this panel, we'll be talking about the future of finance, defining Africa's role in the global digital financial system. We all know from the things that we have heard, from the things that we see, that the global financial system is being redefined by digital transformation, and things are happening so fast. When I qualified as a chartered accountant about 24 years ago, we used to brag like the world of finance, we are the ancestors. But these days, you snooze and you lose. That is what is happening. As global financial power shifts and new digital corridors emerge, Africa faces both opportunity and responsibility to design its own path within this evolving order, to build the infrastructure that supports digital finance and position the continent as a credible global player rather than just a participant. And in this session, we'll be exploring how finance, data, AI, and digital infrastructure are all converging to power Africa's next economic leap, driving innovation, cross-border competitiveness, and a stronger global financial voice for the continent. Summarily, we're going to be looking at 4 key pillars. Number 1, the structure, the systems, the policies that support digital finance. We'll be looking at how to scale, how Africa can expand adoption, inclusion, and innovation. We're going to be looking at sovereignty, building the trust and the governance in the global system. And finally, the synergy, the partnerships, and the collaboration across borders. Gentlemen, I am glad to be moderating this session. And I'm going to be starting with Mr. Buraimo, right? From an investment and financial markets perspective, where are the most significant opportunities emerging as finance becomes increasingly digital?
Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, my name is Ade Buraimo. I work for Afro-Morgan Bank. Before I go too far, I want to actually sincerely thank the Group Managing Director, CWG, Wale Adeyepo, for what he has done and the group has done for our bank. They actually provided the robust core banking application with Infosys that we drive our business today. I want to thank you so much, and I want everybody to please help us clap for them for what they have done. Thank you so much. Opportunities available in the future in finance. Honestly, all of us should quickly rush to invest in infrastructure, strong infrastructure that will drive payment system, easy transfer of financial activities, data centers, payment rails, opportunity that will allow us to initiate transactions from Nigeria and close it in Ghana. That is where we all have to quickly rush to and focus as an investor. That is the future that we all need to quickly put together for finance in Nigeria, in Africa, in this, our ecosystem, to move as quickly as possible. I know we're a lot of people, we have a lot of speakers here, therefore I'm not going to waste too much time. But the truth is, we have to invest quickly in infrastructure, platforms that will drive this digital explosion that is ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A round of applause. The responsibility is on every one of us as stakeholders, individuals, corporates, government, and whatnot. I'm going to move quickly to Mr. Ayotune Koka. And we're talking about future forward Africa. We just don't want to be receivers. We want to be contributors. We want to position Africa. How ready is Africa? How ready is our digital infrastructure to support the next phase of financial innovation? And in your opinion, what are some of the gaps that still remain?
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor to be here. in terms of how ready, I just very quickly go back, a few years. So much has progressed in the last 15 years. I was in the UK for about 30 years in different areas of digital infrastructure, in banking as well, global infrastructure projects with the ABN AMROs and JP Morgans and Merrill Lynch's and so on, and seeing how that progression of infrastructure has happened. Now, before coming back, I came back as the group CIO for Access Bank. I really expected that things like digital infrastructure would be partnered, you'd go for co-location, outsourced, and stuff like that. And I said, why really would you want to build a data center? You outsource this stuff. And I looked everywhere. There are a few people in this room I see no, that point in time. But we didn't have a choice. There wasn't anywhere I would advise the bank to put a data center. So we built one. Never did digital infrastructure before then. But we built it to the right standard, one of the leading data centers around Africa, actually, perhaps one in South Africa, but also had to build network ecosystems around that. And you have to think about power and diesel and stuff like that. And I was thinking to myself, really, my role is really to be transforming the bank. But I didn't have a choice. And we put a lot of effort and investment in, and quite a few other banks had to do some of those upgrades. But if you go back, so 10 years now, things have changed significantly across Africa. There's now the opportunities to provide digital infrastructure. Those days, if you try to link from Lagos to DR Congo, Kinshasa, for instance, it was a nightmare. So we had to really innovate with people like Cisco and so on to deal, it was just a distraction on infrastructure. But now what do we have? Across Africa, you now have digital infrastructure at scale. Corporates, whether it's bank and financial services, corporates have to realize that you need to adopt agile infrastructure. And something that's been emerging in the discussions here are collaboration, becoming really, really savvy in technology. And because that's the way it is right now, you have to be. So the key thing is to pick your choices carefully. Now, ready future, where are we? First thing, Africa actually, in a way, leapfrogged the world on digital infrastructure. If you look at our payment systems, we started to see leverage of these infrastructure. I'll sit down and say sometimes to the board, we're ahead of, say, a Barclays bank in this. Is it possible an African bank? I say yes, actually, because that's what I've done for years. And many banks are doing that, not just in Nigeria, across Africa. The infrastructure of banking has also gone beyond, say, just the core banking. It's now very heterogeneous. You need to think about apps. You need to think about, front-to-end processing for treasury systems. There's a whole range of investments that have come in that have to be integrated, but have to be moved on to be much more current than it is. So the key thing, therefore, is to adopt the agile infrastructure that's required. Now we've got cloud and so on. What you're finding across key hubs in Africa, South Africa has been leading in getting that digital infrastructure in place. Nigeria, actually, Lagos and Nigeria has been moving pretty quickly in terms of catching up. Kenya is another one that's coming up, Egypt, Morocco. So we're building the mega data centers now that bring cloud infrastructure in place, linked with all these ecosystems of the networks that we used to build, okay? That's another opportunity for us to be in a position to leapfrog the world, because digital infrastructure needs power. The world has a power problem. We have different ways of generating power across Africa. You might say the utilities have issues in places like Nigeria, but power becomes a core competency you take away from others. So that is now happening. Now, coming to AI, what's happening with AI? You see, there are different levels of AI, and for just simplicity, I talk about the back end, the big back end, right? Where you have the LLMs in big, huge mega data centers, gigawatts of things in Europe and the US and so on. And they're not latency sensitive. They crunch a lot of data that's required. And someone asked a question about, in Africa, what are we doing? And the answer to that question was right. There's a lot being done about localized African LLM processing, but some of that needs to be local. Then you have what I call the middle bit, the inference bit. That needs actually to be local and hosted here. But can you imagine a bank thinking, okay, yes, I'm now going to build my data center to host some inference bit because I want to. By the time you even talk about it, the world has moved on. But there are infrastructure providers like ourselves in South Africa and so on that are building the scale of data centers that allows you to do the inference part, okay? Now that's latency. Then there's the front bit, which is where all of the innovators that we have, some of them are going to be speaking here, that deliver some of the new financial thinking, AI for risk management, AI for credit scoring, AI for something we found out years ago. I used to be a digital service director at Egg Bank, and we found you have to get into the rhythm of your customer's life. And some of that has been coming out in the presentations here, right? It's just a terminology. AI helps you get there at that inference level. It's the same thing with security, infrastructure security. We've seen what's been going on with cybersecurity. You need to use AI to fight AI, okay? Then there's the consumer bit. That's where you now start to see agentic AI. And that's where you need to really get the innovations that will deal with so many different parts of banking. As the public infrastructure becomes available, banks leverage that to innovate. But it's absolutely key that you focus on the front end of your innovation. Make sure that the middle to the back end is therefore left to everybody. So in infrastructure, people think about what do I put in place for inference? And that's starting to come, actually. A lot of the large global companies are now starting to look at how do I deliver these capabilities at different points across Africa.
Thank you. Are you done, Sam? Thank you. Thank you so much. There's so much to unpack from what he has said. And just
sorry for interrupting. I don't think we are able to hear each other well.
Oh, we can hear each other well. Media, can you please help us? The mics need to
they need to
be
the
increased.
speakers to
Right.
speak up.
Well, audience, can you hear us very well? Thank you. But I heard him, maybe because he's right beside me. But thank you so much. Right. There's so much to unpack from that session. I believe that we'll have a replay of this conference so that we can unpack and unbundle. But because of time, I'm going to quickly move on to Mr. Dimitrov. Mr. Koka, Mr. Brahimo has talked about the things that are available, the opportunities, and we see that there are indeed a lot of opportunities. But I would ask you, what risks do you see in aligning Africa's systems with the global standards? Now, Mr. Koka has told us that the opportunities are there, synergy and whatnot, but in aligning what Africa has with the global standards, do you see any risks now or in the foreseeable future?
Good afternoon to everyone. I'm glad to be here to share some insights from Europe. Talking about the risks, definitely there are such. Aligning Africa's financial systems with global standards offer first huge opportunities related to efficiency, financial inclusion, international credibility. However, it's very important. You should very carefully analyze what are the implementation challenges and to avoid them in terms of safeguarding sovereignty, in terms of providing more efficient services. So having this readiness will help Africa to solve the issue currently have in terms of implementations. Talking about, again, the risks and the sovereignty, this is the most important one. So it's good. It's one of the other challenges, in fact. One of the other challenges is related to fragmented and sometimes inconsistent regulations. So this is another risk that should be taken into consideration and need to be properly addressed in order to move forward for a better performance. Having these steps done from your side, I believe the risk will be mitigated. A lot of benefits will be arising, and you will be able to become part of the global financial ecosystem as a leader.
Thank you so much. I hear consistency in regulation, global standards. Thank you. I'm going to move very quickly to Mr. Gbolahan Joshua. How can banks leverage infrastructure and data to transform the way financial services are delivered across the continent? After all, we're talking about future forward Africa. If we are going to export anything, there must be that synergy. Things must work even within the continent properly. How can banks leverage infrastructure and data to transform the way this is being done? Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to CWG for inviting me back here again, and thank you for just your consistency with this conference. It's easy to start, but it's very difficult to continue. So thank you very much and well done. In terms of what banks can do, I don't really think they have a choice. If you don't leverage it, you die. You know, I mean, all the services people provide now, you have to have a digital component to it. You know, financial institutions have been raising capital in Nigeria for the past maybe 12 or 18 months. If you look at the way capital was being raised in Nigeria before, you give people forms, yeah? If I use FCMB as an example, last offer, we had about 40,000 people who were subscribing digitally. And the total number of subscribers were just about 42,000. So you'll find out that, what if the platform was not available? You lose 98% of the subscribers. So it's no longer a nice to have, it's a necessity. Now, even in terms of how you scale, no one wants to open an account and see a form. Everyone wants to open an account digitally. So when someone opens an account digitally, for you to do that, you must be able to leverage existing infrastructure. So tell someone, put in your BVN, you pull out all the information, and I always use Google as an example. If you have a Google account and you want to subscribe to another service online, at times they'll ask you, do you want to use your Google ID? Yeah? So that other platform is no longer dealing with customer KYC. They're relying on the KYC that has been done by Google. Now, when you want to make payment, some of them will ask you, do you want to use the card that is already linked to your Google account? So you don't have a choice. What people are doing now is you just leverage on shared infrastructure, and I don't think one person can build that infrastructure. You have to partner. If you want to have a siloed ecosystem, you are going to struggle to survive. A good example I always use is Uber, yeah? Uber is alive today because there's Google Maps. If there was no Google Maps, how will you know where the driver is, yeah? Now, you put a card on it, that card can work in Nigeria. If you go to Ghana, the same card is working, you know. And when Ade was saying something, he was saying, you start something in Nigeria, you can finish it in Ghana. And then finally, I think is you have to leverage things like AI. Now, I tell people that 25 years ago, if companies wanted to reduce their cost to serve, what they used to say is, they'll say they're going to China because China was a low-cost producer. The new China is AI. You know, you put the service on AI, and then you can do a lot of things with it. When robotics came, and people were using bots, I remember having a discussion with someone in operations in banking, and he was saying, this thing can't work because of A, because of B, because of C. And the guy that was implementing the robotics told him, he said, my brother, this robot, it doesn't go on leave. Oh. This robot, it doesn't sleep. Oh. You close at 7 and you'll be going home. And the robot will continue working. The robot doesn't go on leave. It doesn't go for lunch. The guy now thought to himself and realized that in terms of scale, you can't scale if you are not leveraging technology. Even if you want to be a merchant institution, the amount of information you can put out for people and the expectations are so high now that if there's no digital, you are dead. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, I hear synergy and leverage. How many of you are hearing synergy time and again? I hear that all the time. I'm going to move quickly to Mr. Zaki. I know we have just a few minutes more, and I still want us to go round one more time. But just building on what has been said so far, my question is, how can regional payment cooperation enhance Africa's financial sovereignty and independence from global intermediaries? Now, again, this is about Africa. We want to position ourselves as a superpower, right? But how can that cooperation enhance that sovereignty and independence from the global intermediaries? Thank you.
That's a difficult question, but we'll answer it in a few seconds. So I think when you look at that, you can look at different levels. So first of all, really building this regional type of payment ecosystem that connect countries together, like we have PAPS from AFRISCOM, and which is going to be able really to have a network of connect and to enable business to business talk in local African network rather than depending on the global network to enable Africa to Africa community. At that one level, and normally building such regional-wise and Africa-wise initiative takes time because it's based on country, it takes time to build. I think below that is really how the private sectors and individual financial and fintech can play a great role. And because within Africa, you have a lot of moving expatriate communities. So there is expatriate community from outside Africa, but in Africa there's a lot. And we see, because of the nature of dealing with many fintech, we see really great examples of how fintechs are breaking the barriers, especially for business. Like we have a customer in South Africa, and you see there is a lot of small businesses doing business between South Africa and Zimbabwe and Botswana. And the cost of cross-border is massive. And these guys are able to slash it by 90% the cost. That's major empowerment. The third one is when people talk about payment, the focus is about remittance, how I send money. I think now it's about cross-border services, enabling cross-border services. How I am a bank can provide a loan to a customer who is expatriate in a different country and serve his family here. So while we have cross-border, how I can enable the cross-border services engagement, not just payment. And I think that will empower a lot the regional cross-border activity.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Talking about cost, you did mention cost, talking about finance, because behind every global payment system transformation is a lot of money and financial infrastructure. I'm going to come to Mr. Brimo. What strategies do you think will attract and sustain capital flows as investors seek stability and opportunity within this ecosystem?
Thank you so much once again. For us to really attract investors into this space and get their support and confidence, we need to be very clear what we want to pursue in Africa. We need to be conscious of reliability of everything that we are rolling out. For example, our financials, it must be clear, it must be reliable, and it must be sustainable. Coincidentally, the auditors, the big fours, surprisingly, they are available for almost everybody because they have segmented their business into multinational, corporate, and MSME. They are available for you to help you put clarity and stability and respectability to your financials. Apart from that, investors will be comfortable with us to invest in this space if our corporate governance is good and is reliable. From the board and ownership point of view, we need to be very clear, we need to be trusted, our word should always be our bond. As I'm about to stop, I'm going to share a very terrible experience that all of us need to take away to make sure we attract investors. We sustain and we retain them, and they will tell others. If you invest in a company and you seeded the company and you funded it, and the corporate governance suddenly disappeared, the CAC ownership register was faulted, was altered, and you are the real funder or the real provider of the fund, the so-called funder decided to remove your name from the list of, or the registrar of owners. How will foreign investor trust us? It has to start from all of us. The regulators, the people that is the registry of ownership, everything has to be trusted. And that would be my own takeaway to everybody in this conference, that you want to attract foreign investors to invest in our space, we must put our houses in order. Reliability, clarity, dependability. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Very quickly, Mr. Joshua, before I come back to Mr. Senecoca. Now, we talk about, we want to put Africa at the forefront, we want to do big things, but we know that amongst banks and within that system, there's a lot of competition, right? My question is, how can African banks and fintechs collaborate, right? Building on what you already said about synergy, to deliver faster, more inclusive, and more efficient cross-border payment experiences. There's no time. I could have talked about some of my experiences, traveling within Africa, but I want you to talk about that, putting aside competition and working together as African banks.
So, I say, look, they don't have a choice. Both the fintechs and the banks, they don't have a choice, yeah? But to work together. You want to do cross-border payments today, you can't be thinking of cards, and you have to be thinking of things like stable coins, yeah? You can't build, one party alone can't build the rails. So you might find out that you want to do stable coins, you might partner with a fintech. You want to do another form of payment, you might partner with someone. Now, in partnerships, there will be some more dominant parties, there will be less dominant parties. If you look at the financial system today, without NIBs, a lot of fintechs would not have survived, yeah? So some people worked hard to put in the rails. Now, that's just for normal payments. When you want to get into things like blockchain, you have guys like Zone who are doing it. When you want to get into things like stablecoin. So I don't think anyone can have all the capabilities today. You are going to have to leverage on people. In some instances, you will do an acqui-hire, yeah? An acqui-hire where you just go to a firm, you buy the firm for the people that are there, and that firm only provides that service to support you. They can support other people, but you cannot do it. If anyone wants to run the rails by himself, just look at the banks today and look at the payment players in the ecosystem. If you're a bank, can you operate without Verve? Can you operate without MasterCard? Go and set up your own card now. Go and set up your own Visa card too. You will be competing for suicide and not for business. Thank you.
They play. Right. I know we're out of time, but just one more question for Mr. Coca, Mr. Zaki, and Mr. Coca. What is one move Africa must make now? We're taking responsibility. We want to do big things. In your opinion, what is one major move we must make now?
Okay. There's so many dimensions, but I'll just pick one since I've been talking to infrastructure. In as much as I've talked about progress made, there's still a lot more to do in providing connectivity because at the end of the day, that's where you get to the end consumer, right? And in providing the underpinning infrastructure. So what we have to do is to really get that investment to scale up that infrastructure that everything depends on anyway, okay? And the governance around it. Therefore, we need to think about having, at the minimum regional, or at least Pan-Africa data sovereignty governance. They do it in Europe with GDPR in the UK. In Africa, we do country by country. So the opportunity is to have Pan-Africa framework and scale up on that underpinning digital infrastructure that we need, and power. You tend to have the mix of connectivity, data centers, and energy, power. That mix is what gives you that underpinning infrastructure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Dimitrov, one move Africa should make.
Well, as a physically active person who plays soccer and volleyball 4 times a week, I don't think that making one move will be enough to win the game. By small and secure movements, while continuing to invest in young and tech-savvy population, as well as further development of harmonized regulation and digital trust frameworks, public-private partnerships for infrastructure, because it's a huge problem as we discussed this topic as well, and payment services, building efficient cybersecurity and anti-fraud services. I believe Africa is emerged to be a leader in financial technologies that are shaping the future of digital financial economy.
Thank you. Many moves, many moves. Finally, Mr. Zaki, one transformational move for Africa.
I think I will say 3 words. They go in sequence: digital, data, and AI. Because you're running out of time.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for this very amazing session. I have taken a lot of notes. Africa Rise, Future Forward Africa, it starts with us, and with us implementing everything that we have learned today. I hope this has been worthwhile for you. Another round of applause for the distinguished men and ladies.